Hi, I'm Jamie. I have a couple of books to read for you today. The first is called The Curious Garden, and it's written by Peter Brown. There once was a city without a garden or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside, even on drizzly days. While everyone stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through the neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working years ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs. He pushed open the door and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last thing he had expected to find up there, but when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways to garden. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up further and further down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken its toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up further and further from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. Which was at the railway station. I have another book for you today. It's called When I Woke Up, I Was a Hippopotamus. It's by Tom McRae and Ross Collins. When I woke up, I was a hippopotamus. Yawning in the morning, I raised up my sleepy head, then took one look out the window and got straight back to bed. "Get up," said Mom, "or you'll be late." But hippos in their sludge don't get up in the morning, so I didn't budge. At breakfast, I was a robot. My tummy wasn't hungry. I wasn't programmed how to eat. My mouth was made of metal, like my nose and knees and feet. "Quick, quick," said Dad. "Come on, eat up. We've really got to scoot." But robots can't eat cornflakes. Dad's words did not compute. When it was time to go to school, I was a statue. I couldn't move a muscle. I couldn't blink an eye. I couldn't lift a finger. I couldn't breathe a sigh. But Mom pushed, then pulled. Dad pulled, then pushed. They heaved with all their might, but my legs were made of granite and my feet were stuck down tight. When I got to school, I was a monkey. A cheeky little monkey. I thought a table was a tree. I had to climb up on it just to see what I could see. I couldn't sit and listen, and my work was rather slack. And when the teacher told me off, I told her off right back. Uh-oh. When it was playtime, I was a monster. A scritchy, scratchy monster with 10 scritchy, scratchy claws. I had 50 scritchy, scratchy teeth in scritchy, scratchy jaws. The girls all screamed. The boys all ran. My mouth went munchy crunch. Then the teacher told me off again, so I had her for my lunch. When it was time to go home, I was a rocket ship. I zoomed up out of orbit. Countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I was nearly reaching light speed. Poor old Dad, he had to run. My pistons pumped, my jetpacks jumped, all full of super fuel. I had to get to planet home and far from planet school. When I was in my bedroom, I was a giant. My hands were huge as houses. My beard was big and blue. I was hunting for a human to put in my human stew. I was crashing around my bedroom. Well, that's just how giants play. We're big and loud and noisy. We don't know any other way. But Mom and Dad weren't happy, and they yelled at, "Keep it down!" But my giant feet were busy, and they crushed a tiny town. "That's it," cried Mom and Dad. "You're louder than 10 boys." Then they stomped upstairs to tell me off for making so much noise. When Mom and Dad came in, they were dragons. They snarled and growled and stamped and howled and nearly broke the door. Their wings caught in the curtains and their tails scratched on the floor. Dad blew a giant smoke ring with an angry, rumbling cough. Mom wagged a scaly finger. Then they really told me off. I stared up at my Mom and Dad and didn't feel so brave. I was having fun pretending. I didn't mean to misbehave. "Of all the wondrous things," said Mom, "that you pretend to be, why can't you be a nice thing?" So I pretended I was me. We had a lovely evening. I helped my Dad with tea. Then I read my Mom a story as I sat upon her knee. At bath time, we played pirates and plotted pirate schemes. Then I snuggled in my blanket and dreamed amazing dreams till I woke up as a hippopotamus the next day. Well, that was fun. Thanks a lot. See you next time.
Hi, boys and girls. I'm Jo, and I'm here to read a couple of stories for you today for Storytime. The first book I'm going to read is called The Boy in the Garden, and it's written by Alan Say. So let's get started. A lot of pages to turn. On the 3rd day of January, father and son went to wish Mr. Ozu a Happy New Year. "We are in a very famous garden," said father, "and there are many treasures in the house, so mind your manners." The boy did not hear him. Mr. Ozu gave the boy a New Year's present, an envelope no bigger than a name card. The boy knew there was money inside, but it was impolite to open it until he got home. So he smiled his thanks and looked out the window while the grown-ups talked. When he wandered out of the room, no one noticed. The boy put on his coat and went outside. From behind a big rock, he peeked at a tall bird standing in the garden. He took a slow step and stopped. He took another step, and the stones crunched beneath his feet. The bird did not move. Slowly, he crept on the noisy stones, holding his breath, eyes fixed on the bird. One step away, he raised his arms. "Ha, ha, ha!" Bursts of laughter rang out. "That's only a statue, Gyro," father called from the house. "How charming," said Mr. Uzo. The two men laughed together. The boy ran from the bronze crane. He ran until he could not see the house. Still, laughter rang in his ears. "They were watching me the whole time," he said, panting. "Papa thinks I'm foolish, and Mr. Ozo thinks I'm silly. I was only pretending. I was thinking about the grateful crane story that Mama read to me, the crane that the woodcutter saved from the trap." As he walked, he saw a small cottage. "It was the woodcutter's house," he said excitedly, and he forgot to close the door. Gyro peeked in shyly and found that the house was empty. Sniffing the air, he took off his shoes and crawled in. A folded kimono laid by the fire. It's too small for a grown-up," he said. "Maybe the woodcutter has a son." Gyro took off his coat and tried on the kimono. It was just his size. Mother usually had to help with the obi, which means belt. But this one he could tie behind his back. Suddenly he felt older. Then Gyro heard a rustling sound outside. The woodcutter is home. Gyro slid the door open, ready to apologize for being in the house. But instead of the woodcutter, a tall woman stood on the doorstep. "Welcome, Gyro-san," she said, and bowed. The boy stared. "How do you know my name?" The woman smiled. "Are you the," he stammered, "are you supposed to be lost in the snowstorm? You're supposed to come later. It is long past your supper time." She folded the umbrella and closed the door. "Come, you must be very hungry." The woman served him a bowl of soup and then covered the pot with a lid. "I am not hungry," she explained. Gyro put the bowl down. "You're the crane woman, aren't you?" he asked. The woman only smiled. "You were in the bird statue and pretending, weren't you? You saw me come here, so you opened the door and put the kimono out. But how did you get here before I did?" Gyro asked. "My, you have a wonderful imagination." The woman laughed softly. "Now eat your soup before it gets cold." The next morning, Gyro asked the woman for a piece of rope. The snow was too deep to play in, she told him. I'll go to the forest and gather firewood, he answered. There is no need for you to go out. I will do a little work, she said. No, he cried, and he ran from the house. From the edge of the forest, Gyro looked back and waved to the woman. I'm like Papa going to work in the morning, he thought. I'm the woodcutter. I'll sell firewood and buy things to eat. All day he searched in the forest and found not even a twig. The crane woman is hungry, he told himself. I have to fix something. I have to find something I can sell. Suddenly he stopped and shouted, There's money in the envelope from Mr. Ozo. He rushed out of the forest and saw the cottage with glowing windows. Even before he reached the house, the woman opened the door. Welcome back, she said. Where is the village? The boy asked. I can buy something to eat. The village is far and nothing is open at this hour. Come, sit by the fire and I will do a little weaving. No, Gyro cried. The woman took a step toward the tattered door. Don't go in there, Gyro pleaded. It will only be for a while, but you must promise not to peek while I work. No, I never peek, never. But don't go, you'll be a... She disappeared into the dark room. Soon he heard the creaking and tapping of the loom working. Stop, he shouted. The creaking went on. The creaking of a door opened. Then he heard voices. Wake up, son, you're having a bad dream, Father called from the doorway. Gyro sat up and rubbed his eyes. A charming boy, Mr. Ozu laughed. Naps in the tea house, like a cat. Father chuckled too. Come, Gyro, it's time to go home. As they left the villa, Father said, It was easy to find you. You were shouting so. Gyro did not answer. Father turned to where the boy was looking and stopped. You know, son, for a moment that crane did look real. It's just a statue, Papa. And a fine statue too, Father said. Gyro only smiled. The end. The other book I have for you today is called The Hand-Me-Down Doll, and it was written by Steve Kroll and illustrated by Dan Andreessen. Hope I said that right. There was once a spoiled little girl named Glenda. The more she had, the more she wanted. The more she asked for, the more she got. On Glenda's 6th birthday, her parents bought her a beautiful doll with long dark curls and a velvet coat. But Glenda already had plenty of dolls. She put the new one on a shelf and forgot about her. When her mother asked what she named her new doll, Glenda said, "Oh, nothing." For a long time, the doll sat on the shelf. No one held her or brushed her hair. She got very lonely, and she wanted a name. One day, Glenda's mother discovered the doll covered in dust. "Don't you want to play with her?" she asked. "You can give her away if you want," said Glenda. "I don't care." That afternoon, Farmer John stopped by to deliver eggs. Glenda's mother asked if he'd like to take the doll. "My wife and I don't have children," Farmer John said, but he took the doll anyway and drove her home in his wagon. Farmer John and his wife didn't have much time for a doll. John was busy farming. His wife Sal was busy cooking and gardening. The doll sat looking out the window. She became even lonelier than before, and still She didn't have a name. In the fall, John and Sal took the doll to the country fair to decorate their vegetable stand. The doll liked that. People noticed her. One customer said, "What a beautiful doll she is." Later that day, a big, gruff woman came along and shoved $5 in John's hand. "I'll take that pretty little thing," she said. She carried the doll away and set her down beside some stuffed dogs and tigers in her ring toss booth. "Step right up," the woman announced. "A ring over any bottle and you win this beautiful doll." The doll shuddered. She wanted to be loved, not gambled away. Hours passed. A man in a uniform tossed the rings. With one ring left, he threw and he won. "I'll take the doll," he said. "I'll give it to my niece." He walked to a shiny limousine, but he didn't step inside. He held the door open for an elegant couple. Then he put the doll in the front seat and drove away. The doll wondered if she was going to a new home. The chauffeur dropped off the man and woman and stopped at a nearby cafe. He greeted the manager with a shout and slapped another gentleman on the back. The doll thought he might show her off to people, but he didn't. He put her in the corner and left her there. At closing time, Harry, the waiter, discovered her. "Hey, Nell," he said to the cook, "have you seen this?" "Keep me," the doll said to herself. "Keep me and love me and give me a name." "Better leave her outside. Someone might come along and want her," said Nell. Outside, a small, dirty-faced boy walked by. He picked up the doll and carried her off. After a while, they came to a neighborhood with dark, battered-looking houses. The boy set the doll down on the sidewalk. "Don't leave me," thought the doll. "It's so dirty here." A little girl came around the corner. "Want to buy a doll?" the boy hissed. "Cheap." The doll's heart sank, but when she looked up, she saw a smiling, friendly face. The little girl searched in her pockets. "Here's a nickel," she said. "It's all the money I have." The boy snatched the coin and ran off. The little girl carried the doll home to her parents' tiny apartment. They sat together on the worn-out couch. "I don't have very much," the little girl said, "but having you is everything. My name is Haley, and your name is Kaylee." Kaylee closed her eyes and smiled. At last she was loved, and at last she had a name. And that's the end of the story. So that was a nice story about a doll who needed a home, who wanted a name and to be loved. I bet you have a doll at home, or maybe not. Maybe a stuffed animal that you love. So that's all for now. We'll see you next time. Happy reading.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hello, my friends. I've missed you. I haven't been here in a while. For those of you who don't know me or maybe forget my name is Megan, and I am here to read you a couple of my favorite stories. I feel like I say this to you a lot, but I did bring a couple more of my favorite books. I feel like you must think that lady has a lot of favorite books. And I need you to know I do. I just really love books. What can I say? The first book I'm going to read to you today is called Only My Dog Knows I Pick My Nose. Do you pick your nose? Yes, you do. You're lying if you say you don't. Everybody does. So this first book is called Only My Dog Knows I Pick My Nose by Lauren Tarshish. Remember, that means Lauren wrote the words, and it was illustrated by Lisa Bronson Mezoff, and that means Lisa drew all the pictures. Are you ready? Only my dog knows I pick my nose. I always do everything just right. Anyone can see that. Look at, he's cleaning up his toys. His parents look so happy and smiling at him. Wish my kids did that. I eat every bite, even the broccoli. Look at, there's no broccoli on his plate. I am the best big brother. I'm always helpful and very brave. Look at him being so nice to his sister, putting her in the wagon and fighting off that fierce frog with a stick. So brave. I share my toys. Look at, playing so nicely with his sister. I never splash. That is a very dry floor of that bathtub. And at bedtime, I close my eyes and go right to sleep. I bet you do that too, right? Well, except sometimes I don't exactly go right to sleep. But only my dog knows that. Look at, he's under his bed with his dog and 2 dinosaur toys. I don't know if that's allowed. Only my dog knows what really happens to the broccoli. Do you see him feeding his dog broccoli? I wouldn't give that to my dog. Only my dog knows that in the morning when I'm supposed to brush my teeth, sometimes I don't. Do you ever use your toothbrush as a microphone like that? Only my dog knows I don't share all my toys. Do you see him hiding some of the toys he doesn't want his sister to break? My kids do that too sometimes. They hide the ones they don't want their siblings to touch because they're afraid they might break them. And I don't follow every rule. He's blowing bubbles in the house and sitting on the furniture chewing gum and eating food in the TV room. Are you allowed to do that? Not in my house. Only my dog knows how high I can climb. He is all the way up that tree. How fast I can zoom. Skateboarding in the house. How big I can dream. Look at that huge castle he made. How tight I can hug. And how loud I can burp. Looks like him and the dog are having a burping contest. So silly. Only my dog knows I pick my nose. He's in there. Look at him. Only my dog knows I never ever splash in the tub, except when T-Rex wants to. That is an awful lot of water on the floor. Only my dog knows about my new pet and where I put my smelly socks. Would your grown-ups like it if you had a pet frog that you caught from outside and brought in their house? Do any of you put your smelly socks in your toys? I know my children do, and it drives me crazy. Only my dog knows how my sister really woke up from her nap. Do you think your grown-ups would be happy if you smashed cymbals in the bedroom of your sleeping sibling? I can assure you that would not go over well in my house. My dog knows me when I'm super silly. My dog knows me when I'm extra wild. Look at how much fun they're having. When everything goes wrong, my dog helps me feel happy again. Aw, isn't that sweet? And at bedtime, before I close my eyes and go to sleep, only my dog knows that I check for monsters and check again and again. Do you ever check under your bed for monsters? And my dogs help me keep the monsters away. Look at, he's protecting him. My dog knows everything about me, and he loves me all the time. And most of all, he knows that I love him too. The end. Look at them sleeping together, all curled up on that beanbag. Isn't that sweet? Does your dog know any secrets about you? I feel like my dog probably knows secrets about everybody in my house, and if he could talk, we would all be in a lot of trouble. That's what I think. Now, the second book I'm going to read is called The Paper Bag Princess. This is another book that I really enjoy. This book is written by Robert Munch, remember, Robert wrote the words, and illustrated by Michael Martuchenko. So Michael drew all the pictures. The Paper Bag Princess. Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince called Ronald. Look at her. She seems smitten by Ronald, and Ronald doesn't seem all that interested in that picture, does he? Unfortunately, a dragon smashed her castle, burned all of her clothes with his fiery breath, and carried off Prince Ronald. Look at her. She has no clothes on. The dragon has Ronald in his hands. I wonder where they're going. Elizabeth decided to chase the dragon and get Ronald back. She looked everywhere for something to wear, but the only thing she could find that was not burnt was a paper bag. So she put on the paper bag and followed the dragon. He was easy to follow because he left a trail of burnt forest and horse's bones. Look at her. She looks very angry, dressed in that brown paper bag, but she still has a crown on her head. Finally, Elizabeth came to a cave with a large door that had a huge knocker on it. She took hold of the knocker and banged on the door. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Well, a princess. I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I'm very busy, dragon. Come back tomorrow." He slammed the door so fast that Elizabeth almost got her nose caught. That doesn't seem very nice now, is it? Elizabeth grabbed the knocker and banged on the door again. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Go away. I'd love to eat princesses, but I've already eaten a whole castle today. I'm a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." "Wait!" shouted Elizabeth. "Is it true that you're the smartest and fiercest dragon in the whole world?" "Yes," said the dragon. What do you think Elizabeth is up to?" "Is it true," said Elizabeth, "that you can burn up 10 forests with your fiery breath?" "Oh, yes," said the dragon, and he took a huge deep breath and breathed out so much fire that he burnt up 50 forests. Look at that fire. Look how hot it looks. "Fantastic," said Elizabeth, and the dragon took another huge breath and breathed out so much fire that he burnt up 100 forests. "Magnificent," said Elizabeth, and the dragon took another huge breath, but this time nothing came out. The dragon didn't even have enough fire left to cook a meatball. Do you think Elizabeth tricked the dragon? Let's find out. Look at her. She's got a little smile on her face. Elizabeth said, "Dragon, is it true that you can fly around the world in just 10 seconds? "Why, yes," said the dragon. And he jumped up and flew all the way around the world in just 10 seconds. He was very tired when he got back, but Elizabeth shouted, "Fantastic! Do it again!" Look at her waving at this dragon, falling right into her little trap. So the dragon jumped up and flew around the world in just 20 seconds. When he got back, he was too tired to talk, and he lay down and went straight to sleep. Look at that. Elizabeth tricked that dragon. Elizabeth whispered very softly, "Hey, dragon." The dragon didn't move at all. She lifted up the dragon's ear, put her head right inside, and shouted as loudly as she could, "Hey, dragon!" The dragon was so tired he didn't even move. Look at that dragon, completely conked out there. Oh, and there's Prince Ronald waving at Elizabeth from the chamber. Elizabeth walked right over the dragon and opened the door to the cave. There was Prince Ronald. He looked at her and said, "Elizabeth, you are a mess. You smell like ashes, your hair is all tangled, and you're wearing a dirty old paper bag. Come back when you're dressed like a real princess." Can you imagine him speaking to her like that? She just saved him. And this is what he has to say? "Ronald," said Elizabeth, "your clothes are really pretty and your hair is very neat. You look like a real prince, but you are a bum." They didn't get married after all. And look at her, prancing off into the distance without Prince Ronald. Don't you love girls like Elizabeth who don't put up with boys like that? I do. I think I have time for one more book. This is another one of my favorites. I don't know if you've ever read this one. This is called The Garafello by Julia Donaldson and Alex Scheffler. This is a fun book. My kids really like this book. The Garafello. A mouse took a stroll through the deep, dark wood. A fox saw the mouse, and the mouse looked good. "Where are you going to, little brown mouse? Come and have lunch in my underground house." "It's terribly kind of you, fox, but no, I'm going to have lunch with the Gruffalo." "A Gruffalo? What's a Gruffalo?" "A Gruffalo? Why, you don't know?" Look at that fox wants to eat that mouse. And he says, "A Gruffalo, he has terrible tusks and terrible claws and terrible teeth and terrible jaws." "Where are you meeting him?" "Here by these rocks, and his favorite food is roasted fox." "Roasted fox, oh my," Fox said. "Goodbye, little mouse," and away he sped. Do you think he tricked the fox? Silly old fox. Doesn't he know? There's no such thing as Garafello. On went the mouse through the deep, dark woods. An owl saw the mouse, and the mouse looked good. Look at, now the owl wants to eat the mouse. Where are you going to, little brown mouse? Join me for tea in my treetop house. It's frightfully nice of you, owl, but no, I'm going to have tea with the Garafello. A Garafello? What's a Garafello? A Garafello, why, don't you know? He has knobbly knees and turned out toes and a poisonous wart at the end of his nose. Where are you meeting him? Here by this stream, and his favorite food is owl ice cream. Ew, owl ice cream. Ugh, no thanks. Owl ice cream, to wit, to hoo. Goodbye, little mouse, and away the owl flew. Tricked another one. Silly old owl, doesn't he know there's no such thing as Garafello? On went the mouse through the deep dark wood. A snake saw the mouse, and the mouse looks good. What do you think the snake wants to do to that mouse? This mouse wants to be everybody's dinner, I think. Where are you going to, little brown mouse? Come for a feast in my log pile house. It's wonderfully good of you, snake, but no, I'm having a feast with the Garafello. A Garafello? What's a Garafello? A Garafello? Why, don't you know? His eyes are orange, his tongue is black. He has purple prickles all over his back. Where are you meeting here? Here by this lake, and his favorite food is, can you guess? Scrambled snake. Scrambled snake? It's time I hid. Goodbye, little mouse, and away snake slid. Silly old snake. Doesn't he know there's no such thing as Garafello? Oh! But who is this creature? Look at who he just bumped into. Who is this creature with terrible claws and terrible teeth and terrible jaws, his knobbly knees and turned out toes and a poisonous wart at the end of his nose? His eyes are orange, his tongue is black. He has purple prickers all over his back. Oh, help! Oh, no! It's a Garafello! Maybe they are real. Remember, we thought he was making this up. My favorite food, the Garafello says. You'll taste good on a slice of bread. Good, said the mouse. Don't call me good. I'm the scariest creature in this deep, dark wood. Just walk behind me and soon you'll see everyone is afraid of me. Oh, sure, said the Garafello, bursting with laughter. You lead the way. I'll follow after. They walked and waffed till the Garafello said, I hear a hiss in the grass ahead. It's Snake, said the mouse. Why, Snake, hello. Snake took one look at the Garafello. Oh, dear, he said, goodbye, little mouse, and slid right off to his log pile house. You see, I said, I told you so. Amazing, said the Garafello. They walked some more till the Garafello said, I hear a hoot in the trees ahead. It's Owl, said Mouth. Why, Owl, hello. Owl took one lift at the Garafello. Boo-hoo! He said, goodbye, little mouse, and flew right up to his treetop house. You see, said Mouse, I told you so. Astounding, said the Garafello. They walked some more till the Garafello said, I hear some paws on the path ahead. It's Fox, said Mouse. Why, Fox, hello. Fox took one look at the Garafello. Oh, help! He said, goodbye, little mouse, and ran right into his underground house. The Mouse said, Garafello, now you see, everyone is afraid of me. But now my tummy is starting to rumble. My favorite food is Garafello crumble. Garafello crumble, the Garafello said, and quick as the wind, the Garafello fled. All was quiet in the deep, dark wood. A mouse found a nut, and the nut was good. Look at that. That mouse tricked everybody into not eating him. He tricked the fox, he tricked the owl, the snake, and the Garafello. Look at that. We've got some smart people in these books today, don't we? Well, that's all my time for today. I hope you enjoyed the books that I read, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye, everybody.